Sunday Morning Bagel. I'm Dr. Marc Allan Feldman, a Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. Good to see you this morning. Glad you could join me. Today's a special day. It's my wife Ann's birthday today, so this is the Ann Feldman birthday edition. We're spending the weekend in Chicago visiting my son Abram at medical school just a few blocks from here. Still could get the New York Times and my morning bagel, and glad you could join. Looking at the news today, front page, as U.S. escalates to air war on ISIS, allies fade away. As the United States enters a critical phase of the war in Syria, ordering special operations troops to support rebel forces and sending 24 attack planes to Turkey, the air campaign has evolved into a largely American effort. And this is sad, but it's predictable. As the U.S. comes in with our military might, as we express more of a commitment to get involved, to interfere, our allies from the Arabs, who really should be the primary ones there, make themselves scarce. The answer is not more U.S. intervention. The answer is to protect ourselves and to let other countries protect their own borders. And this is really the answer for long-term safety and security for the region. America should not be the police officer for the world. Flag protesters set their sights on Mississippi, fighting its banner's Confederate image. It's not really the Confederate image. It's the image of racism and slavery that's been associated with the flag. It's very unfortunate. There's basically two groups who see the Confederate flag as being very strongly associated with racism. One are the American progressives, and the other is the Ku Klux Klan. What we should be fighting is the association of racism and slavery with a group of people who want to have their own freedom and be able to control themselves, their property, and their environment. First thing when you're thinking about a flag is remember what a flag really is. Basically, a flag is a piece of cloth, and the meaning of the flag comes from how people use it. I think it's a crime to use any flag as a symbol of racism or slavery or the superiority of one group of people over another, whether it's the Confederate flag or the American flag. Any flag represents a group of people, and any group of people has its things to be very proud of and the things to be ashamed of. Whenever I see even the American flag, if I think of the bravery and honor of our troops in fighting tyranny, on the other hand, we also think of the plight of the Native Americans and the other groups, blacks and poor in the United States. So I think what we need to do is less a concern about who should, whether we should consider a flag an honor or something to be ashamed of. We should be using the flag to really promote the things that we're proud of. In the shadows, stealing homes, deed thieves hide behind shell companies to bilk the vulnerable. An article about people who are struggling, trying to pay bills and seeing a way out through selling properties, who end up getting both their properties and their money stolen from them. Raising consciousness is important, and this is something I see several articles is really looking at how people connect and new technology. Here's an article on the Web Poet Society. A new breed succeeds in taking verse viral. Starts off on a recent Friday night. Tyler Croft Gregson, a blonde tattooed poet from Montana, took the stage at a Manhattan bookstore and beamed at the crowd that had come to celebrate his new haiku collection. So this is showing how people can interact in new ways through the internet, the Instagram, Facebook, and others to communicate with each other and to touch each other in ways that were very difficult before. It used to be that one had to navigate the controls of newspapers or book publishers. Now with the internet and the availability of every individual to be a publisher and to share what touches them with their friends, it allows new communication roles that are going to change both personal relationships, our economy, and our politics. Speaking of politics, candidates stick to their script, if not the truth. I only tell true stories, Carly Fiorina assured employees during one of her first speeches as chief executive at Hewlett-Packard. But the stirring story that Mrs. Fiorina, now Republican candidate, told about the creation of HP was wholly inaccurate. So it goes on with a picture of my former colleague from Hopkins, Ben Carson, and as well as inaccuracies by Donald Trump, who denied calling Senator Marco Rubio the personal senator for Mark Zuckerberg, and Hillary Rodham Clinton's claimed that all of her grandparents were immigrants, even though her one grandmother was born in Pennsylvania. And now it's talking about Ben Carson, who appears to be shading the facts. You know, my concern is to take it a step backwards and say, well, why are politicians doing this in the first place? I'm not a very good persuader, so what I've learned is the best is to speak from the heart. There's a old saying that what emanates from the heart can penetrate the heart. So tell the truth as you see it, and people will listen. But that's not what the media wants to hear. That's not what a lot of people want to hear. It's like the people who enjoy watching TV commercials that they know that it's stretching the truth, but it's entertainment value. And we need to change the process. We have to think about our elections differently. An election shouldn't be seen as a race or a contest between who has the more exciting personality. Elections should be an important decision that the American people make, to look at the different ways different candidates might take us. Now, we're not used to that. Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have the same wealthy special interests that support both. So they don't do things all that differently. So 2016 may be a time when we can look to doing something new and different. Heroes of Cuba's revolution hope their legacy endures. This is an article about the revolutionaries who are now in their 70s and 80s, dealing with the economic problems in Cuba and the recent thaw in relations with the United States, and trying to pass on their revolutionary fervor to the next generation. It's very difficult. I don't think Cuba has turned out the way they had hoped. Although there's no regret that you hear from the old revolutionaries about bringing down the previous tyrannical government. But the message I get is that everyone wants to believe that they can be part of something larger than themselves. But we tend to take it a bit too seriously. My grandfather, after our family came to this country, he put himself through law school selling chickens on the streets of Georgetown. He established his law firm, and he was the lawyer for a lot of the immigrants who came over to start their businesses. And a lot of those businesses did very poorly, but a few did well, and my grandfather's law firm did well along with them. My grandfather helped to found the Hebrew Academy of Washington, the school that I went to, as well as being a president of the synagogue and a major figure in the Washington, D.C. Jewish community. Had he passed away in his 60s or 70s, it would have been a major event. But my grandfather lived into his 90s, and the buildings he helped build had already crumbled or been sold. And At his funeral, there was his family and his neighbors. It really makes you think about what's important in life and what you want to achieve. Gaps in Egyptian airport security come under scrutiny. That should be no surprise. Our safety and security cannot depend on men in uniforms. It has to depend on relationships between people. When police seek more diversity, outside forces can raise hurdles. Story about a community in Inkster, which is 3/4 black, but very few black officers on its police force. I'm really not so concerned about the color of the skin, but it's a reflection of a larger problem. You don't need to have a police force that looks like the community. You need a police force that sees itself as part of the community. And the problem is our police forces are the enforcement arm of our government. And when government represents us, then the police force is part of the community, there to protect and serve the community. But when we have a government that doesn't represent us, but wealthy special interests and multinational corporations, the police force is not there to protect and serve the community, but to enforce the law upon the community. And every citizen is seen as a potential perpetrator. This makes our police force into a military organization, almost really an army of occupation in our inner cities. And it's no wonder when our police and our community are not on the same side that we see violence in both directions getting worse. And we see two problems that appear to be separate, but really have the same source. We have, on the one hand, police brutality that's seen at its starkest in the inner city black community. On the other hand, you see police neglect, where when crimes occur, it can take inordinately long for the police to come, and they're not that helpful when they get there. Both the police neglect and police brutality stem from the same source, a police department that doesn't see itself as part of the community. And I hope in time this will change. Well, thanks for having a little Sunday morning breakfast with me, and I look forward to talk to you again soon.